Welcome back to another edition of the Collegian Football Podcast. My name is Justin Morganstein and Alexis Yoder here. It is finally a game week, Alexis. We can say that there's a Penn State football game on Saturday. Come on, how excited?
Yeah, I couldn't be more excited, Justin, for this season to start. This team has such high hopes ahead of this season, and they've been talking about it for a long time. They're anxious to get back out there, especially after what happened last season. So a lot of anticipation for this season. I can't wait until it kicks off on Saturday at Wisconsin.
Yeah, we finally made it. I mean, this is like last year was obviously just not for Penn State, but even for the good teams around the country, it didn't have the real feel of college football. I mean, we're going to have a packed 90,000 seat stadium in Madison this weekend, and that was something that we just missed so much last year, even in the big games, and that's just going to be so exciting to see. And you can sense it from the players, the coaches that we've talked to. Everyone is just really anxious just to get there and get this game going, and I'm the same way. I am just so pumped for Saturday. And again, not just for Penn State, but just all the college football that's going to be going on. So
couldn't agree more.
It's just really, really cool to see. I just mentioned that, there's so much player and coach excitement. We've kind of gotten that sense this week from all the media availabilities that, we've attended, obviously. And even James Franklin was just like, look, we're even though he always says we're focused on the team ahead, he's like, we're really focused on this game because we've mentioned it time and time again. This is as hard of a opener as they've played in a long time. And so just what have you kind of been able to gauge from the players and the coaches through these media availabilities so far?
First of all, they're really anxious. I think that they want Saturday to be here. They need Saturday to be here. And
we all.
Yes, exactly. And that's sort of the vibe we've gotten from them so far. It's worth mentioning that the 6 players we got to speak with this week are the 6 captains that were recently announced for Penn State football for the 2021 season. And those 6 players are Jaquan Brisker, PJ Mustipher, Jonathan Sutherland, Sean Clifford, Jordan Stout, and Rasheed Walker. And we had the opportunity to speak with all of them this week, and they're really all on the same page with what they want this season to be and how the preseason has gone. The biggest thing that I want to hit on from what they've talked about so far is how strong the team chemistry has been this year. Obviously, last year it was tough to really get any sort of activity, team bonding things together that for the whole team to enjoy. Yeah, you could enjoy little pods of team chemistry, team bonding events maybe within your position group, but as a whole, they really couldn't enjoy each other's presence as much last year during the preseason, and that's how you build trust with your teammates, and that's very important on the field, especially when you're playing against such big opponents. You have to trust the people that you're playing with. And for these players that have spoken to us so far, they're really all on the same page. Multiple players have said that this is the best team that they've played with in terms of team chemistry. And specifically, to quote Jahan Dodson, he said, "This team is closer than any team I've ever been a part of." That says something. They're building something special here. We can sense it. I'm sure everyone else can sense it. And that's really the big idea that I got from this. And I know that we've been tweeting up a storm on our personal Twitter. So if you want to follow us on Twitter, my handle is Alexis Yoder 1, and Justin,
JMO tweets _ give it a follow.
Give us a follow. Yeah.
But before we get into things though, just one last thing, just to kind of add on what you said. I feel like the big word in these media availabilities, just in terms of non-X's and O's, just non-football strategy stuff, it's been camaraderie. And that's something that, like you said, last year they were unable to kind of build, because Tariq Castro-Fields, who we also got to talk to today, went on and said, we did a secondary fishing trip. And I'm like, and Sean Clifford is bringing the offensive lineman out to dinner and all that stuff. Last year, that was just non-existent. I mean, besides maybe seeing them passing by in the facility and lifting weights together, what were they really doing bonding-wise? And that really is something that was underratedly missed last year, just from a team perspective and not being able to kind of gel and mesh together. Because, again, they only had 8 games. They were all in the Big Ten, so they had no time to waste, to start the season. Not that they do this year either. But, it'll be interesting to see, but that was a common theme, definitely, between everyone talking in the press conferences so far this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could tell last year that they just were not in sync with one another. I think that's going to be a different story this year. They're working to change that narrative, and I guess we'll see on Saturday if that narrative has changed for Penn State.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so kind of moving into the meat and potatoes of the pod here, we're going to go through our own depth chart predictions for Penn State. And, there's some more obvious ones than others. So with the ones that are more obvious, we'll keep it short. But there are definitely some battles that we're going to have to monitor throughout the season here.
Yep.
And one of those battles that we know is probably not going to, or I guess hopefully for Penn State, not going to be an issue is the quarterback position. Sean Clifford, obviously the QB1, and we did find out from Coach James Franklin last week that Jaquan Brisker is pretty solidified in that 2 spot as well.
Yeah, that was really important for him to solidify that, as we saw last year, where Sean Clifford really didn't have his best stuff consistently. Will Levis played a really important role last season, and providing that quality backup performance that the Nittany Lions really needed to keep them in some games. And yeah, that was really important. And while I don't think anybody believes that Robison's actually going to see quality playing time, maybe they'll slide him in for a play or two or with some garbage time if Penn State ends up getting on top of a team by a lot. But it's pretty clear Sean Clifford's the guy. That's set in stone, and that's really important going into this.
Yeah, so I guess we can move on from there. But to running backs, obviously we've talked about it all throughout the summer. This is one of the most talented groups by far on this team, and they have 5 quality running backs that they're going to have to find time for all of them. But we heard Mike Yurcich say they're looking to roll with 3 backs a week. And those top 3 backs, I think Noah Cain you have as your distinguished number 1, despite coming off an injury. He is just, I think, far and away, just the most all-around talented back that they have. But, once you get into that depth, you can kind of have your own opinion and perception on what they should do. So what are you thinking, Alexis?
Yeah, they could definitely do some mixing and matching when it comes to the 2 spot and the 3 spot in the running back room. As you said, I'm on the same page with you with Noah Cain. I think he's the solid number 1 heading into Wisconsin at least. James Franklin said it time and time again. He's back. He's back from his injury. He's stronger. He is faster. And that's something that this team is really going to need. I'm willing to get behind Cain as the number 1 running back for this team. Heading into the number 2, I think it's going to be John Lovett, the transfer from Baylor. He's very experienced. He's the most experienced running back in this room. You have some guys like Cain, like Kevon Lee, like Keziah Holmes that have, they all have some collegiate experience. They have 1 year under their belt, especially with the injuries that they dealt with last year, so they do have a quality year of experience. But I think that John Lovett's experience is gonna trump whatever experience that they had last year. And Kevon Lee, he showed out last year. I think he's gonna get that 3 spot.
Yeah, this is the one of the few positions I think where our opinions differ a little bit. I really like Kevon Lee in that number 2 spot. I think that he is the type of back that provides a nice sort of change of pace to Noah Cain, to the fact where he's the perfect guy where if you're a 2nd and 3, a 3rd and 2, and you need a 4-yard run or a 5-yard run, he's going to be able to power through and get you a run. And against a team that, like Wisconsin, that has a ton of big bodies, you're going to need some of that this weekend. This is going to be like some Big Ten hard-nosed football. This isn't going to be, the most beautiful passing performance I'm sure we've ever seen. And I think that he is the type of guy, especially in a conference that's so hard-nosed as it is. I think Kevon Lee is the perfect fit. He's such a typical Penn State running back. Almost reminds you of like a little bit of an Evan Royster, back in the day.
That is back in the day.
And last year, when everyone was out, he was the running back 1. I don't think it was a question.
Nope.
But like I said, I think that he's just going to be really well suited for this conference this year. And I also do like Lovett, though, a lot. He also provides a different change of pace. He's the type of guy, if you're on a 3rd down situation, a 3rd and medium, 3rd and long, you can do some creative stuff with him. And getting him out in the open and getting him to use his speed is going to be really a great luxury for Mike Yosef to have this year. So I think that's definitely your distinguished top three. I see Devin Ford as more in the return role again. He'll be returning kickoffs, and Jahan Dotson, I'm assuming, will be returning punts.
Yeah.
But I think they'll get them involved. But then again, Mike Yosef says he's only planning on using 3 running backs, but we'll see.
Without a doubt, I think those 3 are the top 3 that they're going to see. They're not going to play any games. They're not going, especially week 1 at Wisconsin, they're not playing any games with who they're going to plug into those roles. They need to go with 3 guys that they know can get the job done. And Kane, Lovett, and Lee are those 3 guys.
And I like, just before we move on, I like Holmes a lot too. I like what Keziah did last year, but he just really gets kind of lost in that shuffle just from the fact where he's almost play style like a Noah Kane, where he kind of is able to do it all and contribute in a number of different facets in short game and the long game. But he's just a guy who's going to kind of get buried on the depth chart a little bit this year, unfortunately. But who knows? Again, he could come in and make a big impact one game, and that might be all they need from him.
Yep, we won't sleep on any of them for now. They got to prove themselves first against some quality opponents, which there will be no shortage of those this year. We're gonna move into the wide receivers. I think this group is a little more set in stone, as are the quarterback positions. So I think we've said it time and time again. Jahan Dotson, Parker Washington, you're clear number 1, number 2. There was a little question mark at that number 3 spot, but I think between Franklin and Dotson's media availabilities this week, that guy sounds like it's going to be Keandre Lambert-Smith. Rightfully so. He has the most quality experience in this group. He's behind those 2 in terms of production levels and time that he's seen the field. Yes, they have some guys that have been around the program for more years, but from a production standpoint, when you need to slide somebody in next to those top 2, it's going to be Lambert-Smith.
Yeah, everyone we've talked to so far leading up to the season in camp, if you ask a receiver, we asked Taylor Stubblefield, we asked the defensive backs, what's one receiver that stood out to you in camp? Keandre Lambert-Smith has been the answer every time. And that obviously leads you to think that he's going to be the 3rd receiver, but the question is, and we brought this up, I think, last pod, can he contribute enough as a 3rd guy to where he's a legitimate weapon? And if he is, then that opens up so much for an offense that is really set at the tight end spot as well, and obviously the top 2 receiver positions. So you have him, and then, of course, you have your depth with Daniel George. You have your depth with Cam Sullivan-Brown. So we'll see if they can contribute as well. But that was kind of a question mark coming into camp, who's going to be that number 3 receiver, and it looks like Keandre Lambert-Smith took that job.
Yep, without a doubt. And as you said, tight end, we're kind of set here with the 3 guys that Penn State has. For us, I think we agree that Brenton Strange going to be that top guy, and behind him is going to be Theo Johnson and Tyler Warren. So Penn State's kind of had a reputation for bringing in quality tight ends and then sending them to the NFL. We saw Mike Gesicki, Pat Freiermuth, but behind those 2 in their years, did they really have solid depth behind 1 and then a solid number 2? I think that this may be one of the deepest groups that we've seen so far.
Oh, yeah. James Franklin, last week of practice, I'm sure you remember, he said it himself. He said, this is the best tight end room I think I've ever coached, not at Penn State, but in my college football career.
Yep.
And, I mean, that's not like a light statement. He's had some terrific tight ends at Penn State. And if Strange and Johnson are able to both contribute in the ways they started to show last year, that experience was really so critical if you think about it. And them being able to get meaningful college snaps in their freshman years last year, that's going to pay ridiculous dividends, I think, this year. And they mentioned Tyler Warren, too, as someone who can absolutely contribute as well.
Yep, he could be more of that role player when those 2 need a breather. They want to have some sort of special play for him that they bring him in. That's absolutely okay for them to do. And, talking with Theo Johnson and Brenton Strange at Media Day a couple weeks ago, they really wanted to refine their abilities to produce in all facets of the game. Whether they came in strong in the receiving game, strong in the run game. I know when I talked to Theo Johnson, he said, I really want to perfect my blocking abilities in the run game. That is something that he really hammered home at Media Day. And that's something that he says he's been focusing on. Brenton Strange has been focusing on what he needs to do, and so is Tyler Warren. So they've been working really hard, it seems like. Franklin's praised them time and time again. So, yeah, I really think that there's a lot of talent in this room.
Yeah, and one more thing on the tight end before we move on. I'm going to be really interested this weekend to see how Mike Yurcich manages both of their playing time. Because if he can I'll put it this way. Last year with Shiraka, I felt that they sometimes did not cater to the roster specifically, more that the offensive play calling was more catered to his style. And if Mike Yurcich can, get some 12 personnel in there with 2 tight ends and get them both on the field as much as they can, then that just suits this team best. And being able to have 2 really talented guys out there and creating mismatches and, getting plays in the middle of the field where they can, break a tackle and get a first down, that's what this team is built for. They have 2 legitimate tight ends that can be contributing a lot on a game-by-game basis. And if they're able to cater more to, their roster with the offense in terms of, getting the best guys out there on the field as much as you can, then Mike Yurcich is going to have a really good start to his Penn State career, because last year that just didn't happen as much. And that's going to be a real key this year. And if they, again, they just really need to be able to get away to get both tight ends on the field.
Absolutely. Moving on to positions on the offensive line. At left tackle, I think we're pretty set in stone that Rasheed Walker is going to have that starting spot. Yep. Behind him, I'm on board with Des Holmes subbing into that spot. I mean, as we've said before, he's someone who we really thought would have stepped into a starting role. But, just with the transfers that they've had come in, I think he's slid down on the depth chart a little bit, but still quality relief if Walker needs a break.
Yeah, and kind of moving to the left guard spot now. This was an interesting battle that, was going on throughout camp. And yesterday, James Franklin announced that it'll be Anthony Wiggin as well as Wilson kind of splitting time to start out the year. And it's going to be an interesting development how that gets managed throughout the year. And are they going to be 50-50? Is it going to be drive by drive? And is someone going to eventually win the job? So that'll be obviously an interesting development to kind of look out for. But at the same time, this weekend, they're going to need some consistency at that spot, considering the amount of talent Wisconsin has on both of the lines. So they'll be really key to what they can do on offense this weekend as well. Absolutely.
At center, I believe we're pretty much set on Mike Miranda taking that spot. He took some snaps last there behind Michael Mennett. He's pretty much one of the most experienced on the line. He's good in communication, good in technique. They're really going to need that at center, so I think you could pencil him in for the starting spot there. And his relief, if he needs it, is going to come from Juice Scruggs. And, he's somebody that could also battle for a spot on the interior at right guard, too. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see, because Miranda started a lot of his time, pretty much all of his time at Penn State was spent at left guard when he wasn't subbing in for center. So it'll be interesting to see where those two, bounce around, because one of them could kick out. That's going to be interesting to watch as well.
Yeah, I think that as we finish up here with Caden Wallace at right tackle, I think just with his offensive line as a whole, one thing you can feel really confident about going into this weekend is the fact that they're set at the tackle positions, and you have Miranda, who is obviously a veteran and has a ton of experience. Not necessarily at center, but just on this offensive line. I feel comfortable with him at center for the time being. And who knows? I could watch this weekend. He could be terrible. That could change. We don't know. But, of course, I do like him for now in that spot, just because of the chemistry he has with the other offensive linemen, and that he seems to have with Sean Clifford from everything we've heard. And just having those 3 positions kind of set in stone with guys that you can really trust, and guys that are used to this offense and have all the talent in the world, that's a good sign, and should hopefully lead to a clean pocket for Sean Clifford and the whole school running backs. Okay, so moving on to the defensive line, we're going to talk about, the pass rushers on the D ends first. Arnold Ebiketie, AK, they love to call him. He seems like he's kind of been the guy for them, and they're really excited about him.
I'm really excited about him.
They've been talking him up all of camp and just how quick he is. Even PJ Mustipher today was like, I don't know if I've ever played with a player quite like him. He's just such an interesting, combination of power and speed. So that was just a really good find for James Franklin. I'm very anxious to see how he performs. And obviously he hasn't played with this defensive line before, but
even Rasheed Walker said the other day at media, he said, I don't think I'm going to see anybody in the Big Ten that can move like AK.
Yeah, they are so bullish on him, and the coaches are as well. So he's going to be a key player for them because this is a position where there are some question marks. And as we get into it, obviously with Jesse Luketa, who is making a hybrid transition from linebacker to DN.
Yeah, I think you can expect Jesse Luketa to see a lot of time at defensive end just because they have some question marks with depth and experience. The two guys behind Ebiketie and Luketa, Nick Tarburton and Smith Vilbert, not your most experienced guys. Nick Tarburton, this is really his first quality year with Penn State. He suffered a lot of injuries leading up to this year, and everybody's been talking about how hard he's been working, how motivated he is. And, that's all great, but this is Big Ten football. You need to be experienced. You need to be strong. There's no rest. And is he going to be ready for that? We don't know.
Yeah, it seems that Luketa is going to play that hybrid role. He's going to see some time at linebacker just because the depth is so at a minimum at that spot. But at the same time, you said it. I mean, Nick Tarburton's going to have to step up for them if Luketa is going to be doing that. And if he can't, that's going to be a weakness for this team.
Absolutely.
Let's just be straight. And if he can find a way to not necessarily just get sacks and get quarterback pressures, but, just get penetration on the line and allow the interior guys who I feel are a little stronger to also get that push, then you just need them to be sturdy. And it's obviously not their strongest suit, but if it can hold up and he can, get a few quarterback pressures here and there and just be able to help out the other guys on the line, that would be really key for them. And we both agree, I think, that Jesse Luketa is better off as a defensive end, just with the body type he has and the quickness and the power. So that will be an interesting thing to watch this weekend just because we've never seen him kind of play both of those roles. But, it'll be interesting to see how that works out.
Yeah, as you just said a little bit ago, I think Penn State is more set in stone and more experienced when it comes to the interior with guys like PJ Mustipher, transfer Derek Tangelo, both two guys that have a lot of collegiate experience. They're going to be crucial for the interior of this defensive line, and you'll have to rely on guys like Fred Hansard, Hakeem Beeman, and to back those two guys up when they need it.
Yeah, I think that, again, kind of like the DNs, though, that the depth in the interior kind of takes a little hit once you get past the top two. I really like this top two, though, with Mustipher and Derek Tangelo because, like you said, obviously the experience they have, but also the fact that they're both considered, some of the leaders on this team. PJ's obviously been here for a long time and knows the program as well as anyone and is outspoken, a captain, like we said. And Tangelo's a guy that they've also been talking really highly of. I would say him and AK are the guys that they've had the most praise for in terms of transfers. So if that top two could stay healthy, you would hope, and can eat up most of that time. Fred Hansard's been here a while though, so he knows the defense. Are they gonna be the best defensive unit for Penn State? This defensive line as a whole, probably not. But again, they just have to do their job and continue to get pressure when they can. And if they can hold up, and last year they actually performed, I think, very well, even though they had a couple people leave, of course. But they just need to have a similar performance that they did last year, and I think that they should be okay.
Yeah, for sure. Depth becoming a problem once again at the linebacker position. You have your top three guys in Curtis Jacobs, Ellis Brooks, Brendan Smith, but behind them, you don't really have a lot of you really don't have any collegiate experience. you have Tyler Elsden from
your high school.
From 20 minutes away from my high school. So I'll be looking for him to get his, and I think he will get his first quality collegiate experience. And he's a guy that Brent Pry's been very high on, gave praise at Penn State Media Day. So you could expect him to get some time on Saturday at Wisconsin. But after that, I mean, you have Kobe King, who him and his brother Kalen, the coaching staff's been talking really highly of, but they're also still freshmen. They have no clue what to expect on Saturday, I'm sure. But behind those top three, it's gonna be tough from a depth standpoint.
Yeah, I think you're starting to see a little bit of the ripple effects from Adisa Isaac's injury as well. Just because obviously you have Adisa Isaac in there, you don't need to move Jesse Lucchetta. You can bring a guy like Curtis Jacobs or Ellis Brooks off the bench and have them as depth. And so they go from, potentially a really deep group to a group that might need help, like experience-wise. And like we said, they've been bullish on Tyler Elsden, but at the same time, he hasn't played very much. And Smith Vilbert, another guy that they seem to like, but we don't really know much about them. So just...
This is going to be a position to watch on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, but they have all the talent in that top three that they could possibly ask for. I really like, even though Curtis Jacobs, before the end of last season, didn't get much experience, I really like him, kind of in that Sam spot just because of how athletic he is. That's more of an athletic position, and where Brandon Smith, he moves to the will spot, which is much more of, a combination of athleticism and power with being able to hit a little more there. So I think that was a good move on the coaching staff's end, but at the same time, that depth definitely took a hit.
Yep, absolutely. That's definitely going to be one of the positions to watch for on Saturday, just to see how it holds up, because, those three, they're going to be expected to play so many minutes. I mean, you could sub any other position all you want pretty much on this defense, except for the linebacker position. So that's just going to be one to watch.
I'm expecting Brandon Smith to kind of be a little bit everywhere. He's got to set the tone for this group. He is all the talent in the world, in my opinion. And I think if he can continue the development path that he was on last year, then he's got to be the leader of this linebacker group. And I think he has all the potential to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to cornerback, we have a couple experienced guys in here, obviously with Tariq Castro-Fields, and then Joey Porter. We have yet another transfer portal product in Johnny Dixon coming in, and we didn't expect to have much depth at the cornerback position, I would say, at the end of last season, but picking up that transfer once again is huge for Penn State.
I think that this is so unlike Penn State, but that their secondary could be their strongest defensive group. And starting at the corners, Joey Porter shows signs of being a legit corner prospect last year. He was, in that first Indiana game, even though they lost, he was unbelievable, I thought. And just throughout the season, he stayed really sturdy. And then you have a guy like Tariq Castro-Fields, who has obviously had his inconsistencies in the past, and has been susceptible to letting up the big play and things like that. But he's coming in here really motivated. He came back here after being injured last year because he said he wanted to be at Penn State. That is something you can't look past, and he's going to be extremely motivated. He walks into a great position where he's across Joey Porter, and they're going to be able to, feed off each other. And if they can both play up to the potential that, we've seen them at times before, then that's going to be as strong of a cornerback room as you can really ask. Like you said, with the transfer edition of Johnny Dixon from South Carolina as well.
Yeah, let's not forget about Kalen King either.
Oh, you can't. Absolutely.
You can't forget about his performance at whatever you want to call the blue-white game. I mean, he showed out. He really gave everybody something to talk about. Is that going to be what we see at Wisconsin? Are we going to see more of that? Who knows? I mean, we know that the qualities are there. We know the athleticism and the work ethic is there. It's just going to be about, does it translate into this atmosphere?
Yeah.
Which I'm sure we will find out.
He was a preseason freshman All-American, so I mean, he has all the expectations in the world. So he's definitely going to get time this year, and he's going to be able to see depth rotational minutes. So we're going to be able to get our first taste of Kalen King hopefully this Saturday too.
Yep, very excited for that one. And last but certainly not least on our very own depth chart, we're going to go to the safety position. This really feels like it's cemented at this point who's going to start at the safety positions. Obviously, Jaquan Brisker, he's kind of had that spot locked up for this entire season. And, that spot across from him at the free safety, that's been one of the better competitions to watch this offseason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jaquan Brisker, in my opinion, the most talented player on this Penn State team. And he last year showed why he's not only the type of guy that should be leading a Penn State defense, he's the type of guy that should be in the NFL eventually. Mm-hmm. And his ability to play within the box and to effectively, play his role at the strong safety spot was really, really encouraging to see if you're a Penn State fan. And getting him for another year, that's as good as you can ask for. And he's going to be one of the leaders of this defense, absolutely, no doubt, as he's a captain as well. But him and they've been very high on Jair Brown, in my opinion, so far this year.
2 JUCO products.
Yeah.
Lackawanna College.
From the same school, Lackawanna too.
What are the odds?
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think Jair Brown is a good fit for that free safety spot, just because they always talk about his athleticism and how he's kind of everywhere and able to cover a ton of ground. And if he's able to use that athleticism and not overdo it and just stay within himself, then I think he'll be very sturdy at that position. Then I would have no issues with him taking 80% of the snaps. I know they have Jonathan Sutherland, who's experienced in all that, and he'll get in a lot of sub packages, especially in nickel and diamond and packages like that. But I wouldn't expect to see Jair Brown out of the game at that spot a lot. He is, I think, going to be incredibly valuable for that team. And what started out, as a competition in camp, kind of turned out not to be one, I think.
It kind of dwindled a little bit. I mean, I know that they said that they're training Keaton Ellis at that safety position as well as keeping his training at the cornerback spot, but I think it's a 2-horse race with Jair Brown and Jonathan Sutherland. Those are the 2 we could expect to get the bulk of the plays there. So I think it's just going to be about, which one of them plays more, and you got to go with Jair Brown on that one.
Yep, absolutely. I'm with it.
Right on board with that one. All right, that's our depth chart because, Penn State just failed to give us a depth chart this year. So
James Franklin even made a depth chart joke yesterday. I think he was trying to come at the media a little bit. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Still would have been nice.
It was one of those, haha.
Haha, just chuckle and forget that he said it and insulted us. But, that's all right. Okay,
don't come after us, James.
Okay, we're going to move on to the game this weekend as Penn State is going to be traveling to Madison, Wisconsin to face off against the Badgers in Camp Randall Stadium. I think I know we're very excited for this one, and players are too. But, let's look at the Badgers a little bit. Wisconsin comes in as a 5.5-point favorite. Close enough, right?
Yeah, I think that's about right.
Yep, all right. So we've been making a lot of comparisons between Penn State and Wisconsin, 2 teams that I think are very similar in what they've gone through in the offseason and what they're trying to accomplish this year.
Obviously, you're going to have to keep your eye out for Graham Mertz, who is their quarterback and had a really great start to last year. Highly recruited guy. And, many thought after his first few performances, this is going to be their first big quarterback since Russell Wilson. They were really high on him. And then he struggled to end the year. But I also think that was a product of, not having a training camp and not having the proper off season to work, obviously, with COVID and everything. And they had a disappointing season in general, like Penn State. But they have all the expectations of the world coming into this year. And again, their running game struggled a bit last year. You can't expect that 2 years in a row, especially with their offensive line.
No, definitely not. I think this is more of an offensive line. Every year, you could always expect that their offensive line is going to be one of their, if not their strongest facet out of their entire team. So, we just talked about defensive line depth with this Penn State team. That's going to have to be durable for them.
Yeah.
In this game.
No, absolutely. That's going to be a big part of it, and that's a perfect transition. Let's get into. I have some keys for this game, Alexis, and
all right.
My first key is get Sean Clifford comfortable early. I know that's so basic, and you have to, obviously get him.
Is
confident.
it though after last season?
But it's so you can obviously just always say, oh, you got to get the quarterback comfortable, but. After what he went through last season, like you just said, getting him just some short completions, get him a couple first downs, get the run game involved. That is gonna just build his confidence up, especially in a road environment like that. If you can get a couple big plays and get him going, get him feeling good, and that's all you can ask for your offense, considering all the pieces that he has around him that you trust and feel confident in. So,
absolutely.
And so, second key to the game, which I have, is we talked about the defensive line kind of stepping up. They need to establish enough edge rush, and we know Wisconsin's offensive line is as good as it gets. Always, they're perennially one of the top offensive lines in the country, and continue to just churn guys out and just giant bodies.
Yep.
But the talent for Penn State has to be able to, the AKs of the world, the PJ Musfors of the world, they gotta get pressure, because if Mertz is back there all day and he's comfortable to work, then it's gonna be a rough day for that defense, and your secondary can only cover for so long, and if he's able to sit there all day, then I just don't see them being able to sustain any sort of pressure on their offense whatsoever.
Yep, if they allow Mertz to get comfortable for too long of a period of time, they're gonna get burned on the outside and in the run game. Really, as you said, edge rush, a lot of high expectations this year for these guys, and they need to establish themselves early, get some pressure, don't let him get comfortable too many plays in a row. We know their O-line is a tall task to go up against. Yes, they're going to get burned every couple plays, but
we'll see some pancakes.
Yeah. Yep.
We always do. But it's but if they can, like we said, just be sturdy. Like just you don't have to get to the quarterback every time, but just keep applying the pressure. Don't let your foot off the gas, and just every snap you just have to as high of a motor as possible. And if you can do that, then they should be able to have a chance in this game. Last key I have is look to win the turnover battle / make a big play early. Okay. So that means obviously protecting the football, which is James Franklin last year when they were turning the ball over like crazy. Said that's obviously was so key for them. But if they could get a big turnover, cause a big turnover, maybe one of those corners, Jair Brown at the free safety spot, get a pick, quiet the Camp Randall crowd a little bit. That could be a big momentum swinger for Penn State, and that could potentially change the game, obviously. And winning the turnover battle in any game is just going to be crucial for them this year.
That's going to wrap it up for us today at the Collegian Football Podcast. Justin and I are excited for this weekend, and I'm sure everyone else is too. So we'll see you next week.